Okay, and we're back for our second day working with clay. So we did our little Haniwa horse, and I had you wrap him up in plastic so that all the moisture would wick back and forth and back and forth. And then you want to get him out of the plastic and you want to see how he's doing. And if he's stiffened up, you want to go ahead and poke holes. And I already did. I started the video and then I had to stop it. So you missed this part. But I went in, I knew I was going to do eyes. So I did just poking holes where the eyes will go, where the nose is going to go, the nostrils. Just to get air into, I'm going to put a saddle on him so I could poke a hole there. And then I poked a hole, you can see, into all 4 feet. You could go in there with a pencil and open that back up if you wanted to. And it'll just even out the drying and it'll set up a lot quicker. Also, we don't want them to, they're shrinking now as they're setting up. So there we go. And I'm going to leave him out of the plastic and he's just going to sit here. I'm going to put him up and out of the way. There we go. And so I don't accidentally knock him over. And we're going to get started with our coil pots. And this is for our module Daily Rituals. And on page 269 in your textbook, we talked about Maria and Julian Martinez. And they are Southwest potters and they are famous for this black on black ware. And they work out of New Mexico. And also in Blackboard, I went ahead and I gave you 4 other jars or pots that have been done by the Martinezes. So you can do any one of these, whichever one suits you, or if there's another shape that you'd rather do, then go ahead and do that. And so I got my clay out and I want to start with, I'm going to make about a 3-inch pancake. So I'm going to start with a ball of clay, about like that. Okay, just warm it up. And then I'm just going to start going around and I'm just pinching it. And I'm trying to keep it round and pinching it, and letting it grow as I pinch it. Just keep it round, keep going. We just want a nice flat, about 3-inch bottom. We want it to be fairly even in thickness across. Things that are the same thickness tend to dry at the same rate, and so they're shrinking at the same rate, and as long as they're shrinking at the same rate, you have less problems with them cracking. So there you go. There's the bottom of my pot, about 3 to 4 inch diameter. So we're going to work in the same method that Maria and Julian Martinez did, and that's the coil method. Okay, so they would have rolled up coils like this. So it'd be easier if I had a big heavy board, but I didn't have one to work with. So I'm working on cardboard, which is going to move a little bit. It's going to shift on me, but that's okay. I don't like to make my coils too small because I'm going to go back later and I'm going to scrape these coils, so I need that clay. So don't go teeny tiny on those coils. You're going to end up with not enough clay to do what you need to do later. I'm going to take my fork and just dab it in the water, get a little bit wet. So I'm going to score and add moisture at the same point. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this coil on. If you don't make it all the way, that's okay. In this case, I'm so close. I'm just going to get another little piece of clay and dab it in there. Okay. And we are just going to continue on in that manner. When I want it to get bigger, I'm going to put my coils to the outside of the ring. And when I want to get smaller, I'm going to put my coils to the inside of the ring. But first, I'm just going to build with a lot of coils. And when I want my coils to grow, I just press on the coils as I'm rolling them, and I move my hands to the outside. And the coils get thinner, and they get longer. I'm going to make a fairly long one this time. I'll show you how. If it's long enough, you can just overlap onto the next course. Wet score, wet score, wet score. Let me double check and make sure. Oh, yeah, I wanted to make sure I was in camera range, and I am. Yay. Move this a little bit over so I can make sure that you'll be able to see it. I don't want any of my seams to line up on this. So I'm going to move this off to a different area. So I have a seam here, and I'll alternate where my seams are. Make sure I'm keeping it fairly round, and then I keep rolling. I know this whole table is jiggling, the camera's jiggling. You guys are probably like, oh, I'm seasick. Sorry, but I'm just working on this little fold-out table, and the only space where I've got good temperature control for working, so you get what you get, right? Oops, we add a little moisture onto there. Do a quick little score on here. A little bit more moisture. My clay's a little dry. I'm going to change the seam up again. And I'm going just to the outside a little bit here because I want it to grow out. Again, I didn't quite meet up. That's okay. I'm just going to throw that in there. You're going to see later. I'm going to make this all come together and hold together. Okay. So now I'm just going to go around here and just kind of pinch this a little bit. Make sure they're all stuck to each other. Okay. And then I'm going to take my spoon, or you can take your knife. If you have a rib, that's awesome. Use your rib. And, or you can use your fingers. And so I'm just going to make sure this bottom course is very firmly attached. This is sticking to the cardboard a little bit. To that bottom pancake. So I'm going to go around all along the outside of that bottom and pull that clay down there. And make sure that course is stuck really good, that it's not going to come apart. Getting these courses so that they're stuck together is really where you're successful with these coil pots, because if they're not stuck together, they start shrinking and pulling away from each other right where you put them together, right at those seams. Now I'm supporting with my non-dominant hand. In my case, that's my left hand, and I'm just pulling this clay up. I can also pull it down. I'm going back and forth. You can see there. And I'm smushing all that clay together. Smushing being the very technical term we use for that. It will be on your worksheet. It'll be on your midterms. We call it smushing. I'm going to add a little water here to just get it to move a little bit easier for me. You know, your dominant hand right now thinks that it's doing all the work, but it's not. Your non-dominant hand over here is the one that's holding this in shape. If you don't apply enough pressure here, this whole thing starts to spread. So if you're getting to where it's like, whoa, it's spreading out on you, you're not using enough force with your non-dominant hand. You're not holding this clay in. You can see too how I've got my hand wrapped in a circle so that I can help keep this in a circular form as I'm going and moving this clay. It'd be nice if I had a little turntable, but I like to do these demos with the same thing you guys have. So I'm not going to assume everybody has a turntable. And if you don't have a turntable, then I'm not going to use a turntable. So you can see how it can be done without the use of a ton of tools, just with some everyday items. The traditional method for Southwest pottery, what the Martinez's might do is they have, sometimes it's called a puka, and it's a little bowl that they will start their pots in, and that'll help hold them up, and it's easier for them to move it around if they have their little puka. That's how the Casas Grandes people did it. But again, you guys wouldn't all have little pukas, so I'm not going to use a puka either. But that's how it would have been done to help make it easier. Nowadays, artists would use a turntable. They'd have a nice little Lazy Susan or something that they'd have this on so they can keep turning it around. It helps to keep it really round. You've probably seen YouTube videos of potters doing similar type things. And they're just turning it around on the turntable. I've got a little recess spot here. Right in here. I'm going to throw a little clay in there. Anytime you get a thin spot, don't be afraid to throw clay in there. Put a little Band-Aid over it. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good. Just going to go over it with my spoon. When I scrape it like this, I'm smoothing it, but I'm also compressing it. And the more we compress our clay, the stiffer it gets. We're taking all those particles of clay and we're smashing it down into a denser package. And so it just tends to set up much, much faster if we do a lot of really great compression with our clay. Okay. And I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. And I see over here, I don't have those really hooked together properly. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to give them some more attention. If those rings of clay aren't stuck together, that's as it's drying. There's so much tension on the clay as it's drying and it's shrinking and it's trying to pull all of these pieces together all at the same time, right? Tons of tension. And it's going to go find the weakest link. And it is really good at that. There you go. That's pretty good. I'm also going to work on the outside now. So I will start. I'm going to hold this, remember, like it's a little baby bunny. And I'm just going to pull a little bit of clay over that first seam. Already my clay is starting to get dry. I can tell by the way it's behaving. It's getting dry. I'll let there a little bit of water on it. There we go. Just pull a little bit of clay over that first seam to make sure that, again, that first course is stuck to the first coil of clay. And then go back and forth with my spoon. And I'm going to use my fork. I love my fork for pulling clay back and forth. It seems to do it super efficiently. And then I can go back. I'll go back later with my spoon just to smooth it. But I think my fork goes a lot faster. I'll throw some water in here. I kind of like this texture. Be an interesting texture, but it's not what they would have done. Okay. So you get to make whatever you want to make. If you want to duplicate one of these shapes that I provided for you, awesome. If you don't want to, that's okay. If you want to make just a little cup, like to put pencils or paintbrushes in, that's okay. Just remember, with air-dried clay, it is not food safe. It's not ceramic. It will always just be clay because it's never been fired. So it'll get fairly durable. I mean, you can pick it up and handle it carefully. It won't fall apart on you. Well, if it's made properly. But it's always going to be just a little bit fragile. It's never going to be hard like real ceramics. Okay, now I'm just going to go back with my spoon and smooth that. So you cannot use it it's not food safe. You cannot put food in it. You cannot put it in the dishwasher. It cannot go outside. I wouldn't put a plant in it unless you had a plastic. You could use it on the outside of a plant with the plant's in a plastic pot, and then you just set the whole pot inside of there. But not if that plastic pot is draining into this pot, because it won't be waterproof. It won't be food safe. This is really for decorative purposes only. And this is the type of thing, just put it on a shelf, admire it, say, look what I did. And I know we talked about this with the Hanawa horse, but I just want to reiterate. Air-dry clay, it's great for us to try out these little projects, and but it's not the same as ceramics. But I will tell you, if you have been having fun with this, and if you like ceramics, our school has a really great ceramics program. So go ahead and sign up for a class. It's awesome. And then you'll get to make real ceramics. It's been kiln fired and the whole shebang. All right, so that's not too bad. I'm going to add to it. Add another coil, and I'm going to come back in with this a little bit just to have some fun. If you try not to shake the whole table. Sorry, the camera's going to shake like crazy. with coil pots, they don't like to go too tall without having a little bit of time to set up. I can usually go about 3 to 4 inches tall, and then I got to back off on it a little bit because it's just, the clay's too soft. And so it'll just try and collapse on you. So I'm going to throw in a little bit more here. This time I'm going to go to the inside. I'm just going to throw in a little bit more, and then that's too thin. I'm going to get rid of it. And then I'm going to have to give it a break, and then I'm going to go back to the Hanawa horse. And we're going to work on him because we need to give him all sorts of lovely details. But I just want to show you about how to bring the clay in if you want it to come in. Okay. A little overlap there. And I'm bringing this to the inside here because I want it to come in. It's going to come to a point if I'm bringing it to the inside where I'm not going to be able to get my hand in there. So I'm going to stop in a minute here, and I'm going to smush these coils together and go through and smooth them. And while I can still get my hand in there. Okay. So again, I'm going to use my fork because you know I love my fork. I get this first coil to stick to the other coil. It's very soft. It's trying to move around on me. We'll see how far I get. I'm kind of pushing it here. But I want, like I said, I really want to show you how you make this turn a corner and go back in. And I also want to show you how to finish it off, but it's going to have to sit up for a little bit. So we'll go back to our horse, and then we'll come back and we'll work a little bit on our coil pump. We'll go back and forth between the two. And this is very common, you know, in a studio, a ceramic artist like myself. I would have multiple projects going at once because there's always something I'm waiting for it to set up, waiting. And, you know, the clay's in charge. It's going to do what it's going to do when it's going to do it. So, yeah, that's one of the things that you have to get really good at is really reading the clay and what it's willing to do and not willing to do. And also, clay has taught me a lot of patience. And you just learn to multitask. Sometimes I just have a list going on my board of all the projects and where they're at, and, you know, they're just all over the place. That's just part of the deal when you're working with clay. You can see how wobbly this is and how soft it still is. I'm really pushing the limit of what this wants to let me do right now. And so if you're feeling a little insecure on your end, if you're like, I might wait a little bit, then, you know, follow your own instincts. If your clay is wetter than mine, you know, that's the other thing, is that the clay can come out of the package. Some of it's drier and stiffer, some of it's wetter. Sometimes it depends on the clay body. Sometimes it depends on how long it's been sitting there. I'm supporting it. I'm going to get a little water, it's a little dry. Supporting it on the outside with my non-dominant hand. I'm doing the same thing that I did before, and I'm really giving it a good push with this hand because I don't want it to spread out. I'm trying to get it to come back in right now. So I don't want to let it get spread out. And that's all your non-dominant hand is. That's all about them and how well they're attaching, or they're pushing against. I'm saying attaching because this is not attaching well. Got to get in there and pull that clay around a little bit more. I'm going to throw some clay in here. Got a bit of a thin spot, so I'm going to go in and fix it. Okay. Good, that worked. This doesn't look very pretty yet, but don't worry, pretty's coming. Okay, just hope you're just working along with me. Look how soft that is. That's good because when I push it out of form, I can push it right back into form. All right, that's about as much as it's going to let me do. I am going to clean the spoon. And I'm just going to paddle this in. Okay, that's all I can really do for right now. And that is pretty sketchy. That's pretty rough, but it's just too soft. So I'm going to set that aside, and let's get our little Hanuman horse back. Let's work on this little guy for a minute. Okay, so we got these beautiful little ears. We got this mane, got a lovely saddle. I think I'm going to start with the saddle. I don't want to layer a ton of clay, so I don't necessarily want to put a whole... Yeah, I think I will. Never mind. Never mind. Let's just do it. So, I need a little bit more clay. This clay in here is dry. I'm going to just throw little sprinkles of water in there. And if your clay's dry, you can get your fingers wet, and you can just wedge with wet fingers, and that'll drive some moisture back into your clay. You can see it's getting it wet. Okay, now my hands are a mess. Let's just dry those off real quick. And so, saddle. So I'm going to leave this kind of thick, like this. And I'm just going to flatten it out this way and this way. And now I'm going to go this way. I'm going to make sure it's not sticking, pick it up. If I had a rolling pin, I'd be rolling this, but I didn't want to make you guys get rolling pins and all that. So we're just going to do it with our little paws. I don't want it super thick because I don't want to put a ton of weight on this horse's back. I don't want him collapsing under the weight of everything. Okay, so that's good enough. So, man, I love an X-Acto knife for this. I'm just going to check my measurements. Comes down to about here. And let's see, width-wise, okay, just eyeballing it. Okay, and so let me just double check and see. There's his saddle, and they have, this is a nice, they have like a little semicircle that's holding him into the saddle. So I'm going to use some of these scraps. Move him over here a little bit. I'm just going to add that on. I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to smooth these edges. When you cut clay like that, these edges, they're sharp, and when they dry, they get sharper. So smooth them a little bit. I'm going to do another little semicircle on that back side. Press the clay out flat. About the same length as the other one. Make sure I'm in camera here. I want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay. And they have just kind of a little impression of the ring that, you know, they would have put there. The stirrup, I guess it's called. Just going to do a little stirrup here. Here. Okay. Run my finger over this. Smooth it. This back one isn't working. It's too thin. I'll take it off and do another one. Like I said, I don't mind you seeing me make mistakes, because then you know how to fix them. If your fingertips get dirty, just dip them in the water, clean them off, because they get just as sticky as the clay. Okay. Bring it back over here. Smooth that and compress it at the same time. Got a little part over here that's wanting to crack. Just support it and move some clay in there to cover up that crack. Okay. Same thing on this one. Okay, and we have a little tail here. Oh my gosh, this tail is adorable. You just look at a couple pictures and see if it looks the same in both. Got a little pointy tail. Knife. I'm starting to get so much stuff on him that I do not want to pick him up anymore. But I do want to look. Oh, this is not in the middle. Gotta move him over. There we go. That's better. Attaching the tail. Adorable. Smoothing everything. Okay, what else do we have? There is something else on his back. Looks like it's a sort of something that comes out in a fan design. I've made this saddle bigger, but that's okay. Artistic license. So it's kind of a fan design with little balls on it. Not quite sure what that is, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it works out. And my fingers are so wet, I can't touch the clay. A little more clay. Not a very round ball. I don't think this is going to fit in here. This goes back here. Yeah, it's a little bit too deep. So let's take some off. And oh, there goes the tail. It's okay. Worst things will happen. We'll just put that baby right back on. I probably should have saved the tail for last because it's pretty vulnerable just hanging out there while I'm doing all this other stuff. You know, I think I will. I'll put the tail over there. Put him back on later. Okay. Now he's also got a ring around his neck. But I think, nope, I can do that next. So I'm going to do a little coil. Excuse me, little guy. I want to make sure this is going to go all the way around. It will. And now I'll just use my pencil. Flatten it out a little bit. It's a little wider than I need it to be. And I'd like this to be a nice straight line. Because that's the way it is in the original. Ooh. Okay, I lost some of it, but let's see if it'll still fit. Yes, we have it. I don't want to run a fork over this. I would worry about what would happen. So I'm just going to get it really wet and sticky. I'm going to go ahead and add it on here. Hooks up to the saddle. Okay, and we got some little balls hanging off of that too. Don't know what those are for, but I like them. Okay, and we need those adorable ears. I'm going to bring my little bit drier clay. He's a little lopsided. We also have the mane, so let's do the mane first, and then we'll, because I'm afraid, I'm just going to roll a coil. I'm afraid if I put the ears in and then I try and place the mane in around it, I'm just going to make a big mess out of it. I'm going to knock those ears off. So I'm going to roll a fairly fat coil. Watch out, baby. Okay, bring my pencil back in here. Flatten it out. I'm not going to make this one too thin because it stands up. Just going to check. Need a little bit of an angle here to get it to nest down into. Did I do that the wrong way? Let's go that way. Let's see if that works. Get him to nest down into that saddle, and he comes up and it comes over and down, not between his eyes, not that far. So right about there. Okay. And then it's got this really lovely texture on it. I'm going to just take the side of my spoon, texture that. Other side. And I am going to make that the shape it's going to be. And then I'm going to pull that off, and I'm just going to leave it off to the side. I'm going to put it over, it's out of camera range. I'm going to leave it in that shape and set it over there and let it set up for a little bit. I've got the eyes and the nostrils to do. So the eyes are almond shape, and they're just cutouts. So this is a great use of my X-Acto blade. Move that a little bit. The other side. A little bit bigger. I'm comparing left and right to see if they kind of sort of match. Yes, they do. The nostrils, we have a nostril on each side. Do a cutout on that. Cut out here. Let's see what I'll show you what we're doing here. See? Just picking his nose. That's all I'm doing here. Okay. And then they put just a little flare on the nostrils. I love that. I'm going to do a little coil on each side of the nostril. So I'm just going to get a little wet. Did a little flare up around the nostril. Woohoo! Easy peasy, right? It's the details that sell it. So tiny. Get in there with my X-Acto knife, a little bit of water. I can just kind of get it to blend in. And get them to match, or get close to matching on both sides. Okay, up through here. And he's got, I need clean fingers. He's got more strapping everywhere. So, flat straps. Rolling the coil. I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing here. They're fairly thin and small, so I'm going to go with a very thin coil. I'm going to use my pencil, flatten them out. That one's pretty straight. I think I'll just focus on this side here. The clay is so soft that as I cut it, it's just pulling. It would be nice if I could wait, but if we're going to finish this in one class period, we can't wait. You could wait. So if you're frustrated and you want to wait, let this set up. If it's just a little bit stiffer, it just cuts beautifully, but it's fighting me right now. So we have one that goes down his face. So from where his mane stops, it comes down to about there. Get it nice and wet and it'll stick. Okay. And from there it goes goes around. I think this connects into a bit in his mouth. There's kind of a fancy ring here that's holding all that together. I just quickly simulate that. Got a bit coming in on either side. I am not an equestrian, so I'm not really sure how all of this connects, but I'm going to do my best. Let's get these wet so they stick. Just throw those in. And we've got one that comes down the side of his face. So this goes around his mane. Comes down under here. And another one, let's get these over here, put everything to use. Another one goes up, looks like under the eyes, goes up by the ears. Behind the ears. So you can put in as much or as little detail as you want. Whoops, that came off. I'm just going to stick it right back down. So I am getting to the point where I'm pretty good with this, bringing the mane back in. I'm going to get nice and wet and gooey. Okay. And some ears. These ears are just adorable. You know what? I got this clay over here. It's been sitting. It's going to be a little bit drier. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for me to work with for cutting out small, thin slabs. Okay. I think these ears, it's probably going to be too big. Yes, it's definitely going to be too big, but it's also a little too thick. I'm going to press it to thin it out. So I just cut little ovals, run around. Score this and get this nice and gooey. I want lots of gooey clay right here. what is tiny enough to get in here? X-Acto knife. A pencil maybe. There's one here. Okay, here's hoping I can get two that kind of match, kind of sort of match. The problem with eyes and ears is getting two that look the same. I left this part here and I kind of folded this up because that gave me some place to slip and score and get it to stick down. See, I just folded that little flap up there. And I used my X-Acto knife because it's just so small. I didn't want to go in there even with the fork. And let's get that second ear in there. Okay. So I think, oh, tail. Where? Oh no. I said this tail, oh, there it is. The tail ended up on the scrap pile. Let's put that tail on and then walk away and leave it. So sometimes these little things like the tails and ears, you want to be the last thing that you do because they're the first thing you knock off if you're not careful. Come back around here, little guy. Make sure that tail is close to the center. He's off again. Okay. And I could just go over him and do a little bit of cleaning all the little spots that I boogered up, but voila, he is done. There's my honeymoon horse. So I'm going to set him aside over here, and I'm going to get my coil pot back. My coil pot really could stand to sit a little bit longer. It's still very soft. So I am going to just clean this up a little bit. Use my spoon and go around and clean it up. You know, I'm also compressing it, right? I got my hand at an angle going backwards, my non-dominant hand, my support hand, because that's the direction I want the clay to go, and the clay is going to follow my hand. So be cognizant of what that hand is doing. Okay, it's stiffened up a little bit, but it's still pretty soft. And I've got some coils that are separating, so I'm just going to go back over this. Just really give it a good nudge in the direction I want it to go. Make sure those coils aren't going to separate. I'm going to move this horse. I know I'm just going to do something that I'll regret, knock into him by accident, and then I'll be all sad and crying. Okay, I'm going to clean my spoon off. Give this a little bit more of a paddle. Then I'm going to do one last coil on here, and Really focus on getting a really nice, even, I know I'm going to jiggle the camera, I apologize. Really nice, smooth, even coil, and that's going to be my finish on this, and I'm going to call it good. I will go in and I will clean up and smooth and do all that good stuff to my coil pot, and you can work on that, but you can work on that off camera because I am going to call it good with this last coil. So I'm not going to pinch this coil. I'm going to smooth it. Oh, I forgot to wet it. Let's go back. Sorry. I was thinking, where do I get my gooey? I need some gooey clay to get this thing to stick because I didn't put any water on there. Okay, and we're back. There we go. Okay, I want to take my knife and come up underneath this very gently. I'll pull the clay from the pot onto this coil. I really don't want to change the shape of this coil. I want it to be pretty. I want it to be my finishing on the pot. I know it's going to go out of shape a little bit, and I can go back and I can fix that easily, but I don't want to do a lot of work that's going to cause it to be all boogered up, where I'm going to just have to go back and do a lot of cleanup work. So I'm going to really kind of focus on being gentle with this. But I do need to get this last coil to stick. Remember, clay is going to go find the weakest link, and I don't want that to be the last thing I put on here. I've got a thin spot, so I'm going to go throw some clay in there. Give it a little smush. Ooh, let's get a little boogered up here. Careful, careful, careful. Okay. Okay, I still have, it's not really well attached on the outside. Putting it on the inside, I'm going to go and pull this clay down very gently. I'll show you here, I'm just getting a little teeny bit of clay. I'm using the serrated edge of my knife. Carefully, carefully, carefully. Still, it's still very soft. Again, it would have been nice if I had the luxury I'm letting this sit up and stiffen up a little bit. And then I wouldn't have to be quite so careful. But I want to show you this in real time as I'm doing it and also get it done in class today. So I'm working with it a little better than I like, but that's okay. Worst things will happen. So I'm just going to dab my spoon in a little bit of water. Smooth out all these marks that I made with my serrated knife. Okay. I keep bringing it back to round. I remind it what round is. Every time I touch it, it tends to want to go out of round. And if I give it a little compression as I'm putting it back into round, it'll give it that memory of what round feels like. Okay, so I have some cleaning up to do. As you can see, it's a bit messy, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you're going to continue to clean yours up too. And then when you're all done, don't forget, snap a picture, throw it in the assignment folder.